Okay, so I want to do a follow-up video that has to do with phone service and getting mail when you're doing the van life thing. So I should probably combine phone service and internet service together as one. But when I say van life, if you happen to be someone who is living in their car, traveling a lot for work, some of the topics I've talked about on this channel have to do with working seasonal jobs. So me in particular, sometimes I work someplace for 3 months, then I have to move, and then I move to the new job, work there for 3 months, then I move somewhere else and work somewhere else for 4 months. So every time I move, it's like I have to change my address. I have to get mail somewhere new. I have to make sure my phone service works in the new city. So this is why I wanted to talk about some things that you might think, well, you already did a video on this, why are you talking about it again? Well, sometimes I make a video and things change or things have updated, and so I want to do a follow-up video on that. When I did a video before about phone service, phone and internet service, probably one thing I should have talked about is because I have worked in some very remote areas, national parks, that sort of thing. Sometimes it doesn't matter what phone service you have. If you're just out in the middle of nowhere, you're not going to get any phone service. So I'm curious for anyone out there that has, the satellite-based internet service. I'm curious, how do those work when you're kind of like out in the middle of nowhere? The Starlink, anything like that? Because obviously just using my regular phone service is just probably not going to get a signal. Like if I'm deep in the middle of nowhere, it doesn't matter how good my phone service is. Like some places just do not have phone signal. One of the reasons I had been sharing my link to the phone service that I use, I wanted people to be able to get an affordable phone service like I do, because I talked about this in a previous video that I only pay $11 a month for my phone service. Now, after I made that video talking about the $11 a month I pay on my phone service, I got a notification from the company saying that they were retiring that phone plan and my phone plan would no longer be available. That as long as I stayed on my plan, I would still pay the $11 a month rate. But if for some reason I were to change my plan, like I talked about adding more data to my plan, that I could change my plan to a more expensive plan to get more data, but I couldn't change back. That $11 plan would no longer exist if I tried to change back. So it's kind of like, keep the plan I have now for $11, which is a great deal, but they're not offering it to new customers. Now, of course, they do have really good prices. I think the next price up is like $15 a month. So it's still like really affordable. But I just didn't want it to seem like I was doing any sort of like false advertising by saying, hey, I only pay $11 a month. Maybe what I could do is post the email I received here so that y'all believe what I'm saying, okay? Okay, so let's talk about the mail service for when you're doing van life or traveling a lot, because I talked about getting a P.O. box and also talking about getting a UPS store mailbox. The other thing I forgot to talk about was what sometimes people refer to as a virtual mailbox. And this is where all your mail gets sent to one location, but it doesn't matter where you are. You don't have to actually be there to go pick up your mail. It's a virtual mailbox, which means the people at that location, the staff, will open your mail for you. Then they will usually scan it into a scanner, into a computer, and basically email you a copy of your mail. So it doesn't matter where you are, you can receive your mail anywhere. Just open your email and there's a copy of your mail. But it's going to that one mailbox, which is why it's referred to as like a virtual mailbox, because you don't have to keep going to go pick up your mail somewhere like you would with a P.O. box. Okay, now here's the thing about YouTube. Okay, so sometimes you see people, they do these reaction videos or response videos where usually, they'll watch someone else's video that's on YouTube and then they'll post a video kind of reacting to it, and they might even play a clip of it and then kind of go over what we all just watched in the clip. I thought about doing that for this video because I felt like sometimes there are other people talking about how they receive mail when they're living in a vehicle or living in a motorhome RV, and I feel like there's times where I have commented on this and I have talked about my personal experience, and then they tell me I'm wrong and that, you know, they had to do it this way, and I say, no, I did it this way. So a lot of times I always feel like, well, this is my personal experience, so I do want to talk about it because, like I said, I've talked about this before on my channel, but things have changed and some things have been updated, and some things there's, you know, I feel like I need to like correct anything I've said in a previous video. So as much as I could probably share with you video clips of other people talking about this subject, you know, I didn't know like if they'd want me to, or if they want me to share their video. Not that I necessarily need their permission, but I just would, you know, I don't want to talk negatively about somebody else. I do want to use it more as like talking about my experience, but my experience was obviously different from theirs. So if I had a disagreement with another YouTuber about a certain subject, I basically felt like maybe I should clear things up a bit. So let me start with my experience just saying the first time I ever got a P.O. box was because at the time I was selling things online. So you could say I had kind of like a side business going on. And when you sell things online, oops, airplane. When you sell things online, sometimes you don't want people to know your home address. So I would use a P.O. box because that was kind of like my business address. Now, after having a P.O. box for a while, I realized that sometimes some places cannot deliver to a P.O. box. Such as sometimes Amazon won't deliver, FedEx won't deliver. So there's certain things that I was hoping to get shipped to me, because also that's another thing is sometimes like if you live in an area that's like kind of like, I don't know, kind of like a sketchy area, that you don't always want packages delivered to your house because they'll probably get stolen off your porch. Or in my case, I had a mail room that they would just leave stuff in the mail room and people would steal stuff out of the mail room. So I was like, okay, well, I want to just get it delivered to my P.O. box because I had the P.O. box anyways. And when I realized that certain places won't deliver to a P.O. box, that's when I decided to actually get a UPS mailbox at a UPS store. Now, I have talked about moving and about how, like, you know, maybe I didn't have a permanent address because I was kind of like between jobs and I was moving from city to city. Sometimes I would use my job as my mailing address until I could figure things out. But another thing I wanted to talk about was I've also used companies that sometimes people will refer to them as like a mom and pop type shop, that it's not the US postal system, it's not the UPS, it's like a private business, and so they would offer mailbox services. So depending on what your situation is, you could look into any of those, like the virtual mailbox. This is where I'll get maybe into the reaction part of the video. So I would say that basically I've had no problems ever trying to get a P.O. box or a mailbox through UPS. Now, I've had people say that recently when they tried to get a mailbox service, they were told they had to prove their home address, usually by providing some sort of documents, like a copy of their lease or something like that. So if you're someone that you don't actually have a permanent address, trying to come up with these documents might be a little difficult, especially if you're like moved to a completely different state. You can't say, hey, I live at this apartment in New York, but now I'm in Arizona. Like, you know, how do you prove that? And I always thought that's kind of like weird, because like when I first got it for my business address, I thought, why would I have to prove my home address when I need the address for business, not for my home mail? So I just thought, like, I never had an issue. Okay. So when people were saying, well, now things have changed, I thought, well, that's not how it worked for me. So, I've had a mailbox this whole time, and probably about a month ago, they basically sent me a notice saying that if I didn't provide them with certain documentation, that they were going to cancel my mailbox service. So it's true, like all the things that other people have been saying about how you need to now prove where you live and your home address before they'll even give you, this second mailbox that's supposedly for business purposes or whatever you're using it for. Most people that are on the road are probably using these mailbox services to actually, get packages and stuff delivered to them. Now, of course, if the only thing you needed to have was something delivered to you, you can always have something delivered through Amazon to like an Amazon locker, and you don't need a permanent address. You just choose a locker that happens to be in the city where you're at. But since there's reasons why people might need to get mail for important legal documents, that sort of thing, I just found it strange that they've now, I guess, changed their rules, policies, laws, whatever you want to say. So I am, just so you believe me here, I'm going to show you the documentation that I was given, as well as a list of what it says. I'm probably not going to do any talking while this is on the screen so that you can give it your full attention. I just wanted you to see what the notice told me, that basically they were saying they were going to cancel my mailbox service if I didn't provide this information. So that's how I'm going to wrap up this video today, was to just kind of like let y'all know this is the thing that has changed since the last time I did a video about these subjects. But I do appreciate you watching, and you can kind of like stick here to the end, read through what it says. I'm not going to do any additional talking after this, so if you want to end the video here, you can. Otherwise, this information might be important to anyone that is looking for mailbox service for van life.